Okay, so imagine a situation when you go to a mechanic and tell him that you are getting low power from your engine, and he says that the engine has to be rebuilt. Is it? Won't he perform compression test? Don't you know what it is? Do not worry, you are at the right place. The purpose of this video is not to show exactly how compression test is performed, but to tell the basics of compression testing. So compression, as the name suggests, is to check whether the piston in the cylinder can compress the charge to a particular value or not. So after performing this test, we will know the condition of various parts inside the engine. The parts that I am talking about are valve seats, valves, piston rings, liners, etc. Because all these parts are involved to hold down the compression, and any deviation from the idle value of compression will tell us about the faults which is there in it. What happens is that during compression the charge leaks through these spaces, that is through worn out parts. So now when we know that there is actual problem with the internal parts of the engine, we can ask a mechanic to overhaul the engine. So imagine a situation when a mechanic overhauls the entire engine, finds no fault with the piston rings, valves, liners, etc. And the fault is due to simple electrical failure. In that case, it is huge loss of money and time of the customer. So compression test can be huge saver in this case.
Now the question arises how to perform this compression test. So to perform this compression test, we will first open the hood of the car. Then we will locate the engine. Now this is a 4-cylinder engine, and for starting the compression test we will have to insert the test probe, that is the compression test gauge, into the spark plug well. In this case, as it is a petrol engine, we will remove the ignition coil. This is the ignition coil, so I will remove the ignition coil. After removal of the ignition coil, I will remove the spark plug. Now when I have removed the ignition coil and the spark plug, I will have to insert, or we will have to insert, the test probe into the spark plug well. And after we have done that, we will remove the relay for the ignition coil and the injectors. And then when we have installed the compression test gauge equipment on the cylinder number 1, we will crank the engine twice or thrice and note down the reading. After we have noted down the reading, we will again mount the part back, that is again put the spark plug back, followed by the mounting of the ignition coil, and we will do the same process for the corresponding cylinder, that is cylinder number 2. What we will do is that we will remove the ignition coil for cylinder number 2, we will remove the spark plug for the cylinder number 2, and again we will put the compression test gauge here, and again we will crank the engine and note down the reading. So we will do this for all the 4 cylinders, that is for the cylinder number 1, 2, 3 and 4. So after doing that, suppose the reading for the cylinder number 1 is 30 psi, cylinder number 2 is 29 psi, cylinder number 3 is 30 psi, and cylinder number 4 is 31 psi. Now when we have the reading for all the 4 cylinders, we will compare these readings with the manufacturer specifications. A difference of 1 to 2 psi from the manufacturer specification is okay and will work, but a difference of more than 1 to 2 psi is not acceptable. Now imagine a situation when the reading for the cylinder number 1 is 30 psi, the cylinder number 2 is 28 psi, for the cylinder number 3 is also 28 psi, and for the cylinder number 4 is 30 psi. In this case, the reading for both the cylinder number 2 and cylinder number 3 is same, that is both the readings for both the cylinders are 28 psi. So whenever we have the situation in which the reading for cylinder number 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4 are same, in that case it shows that there is problem with the head gasket, as charge is leaking through the head gasket, which makes the compression same for the adjacent cylinders. So if the reading of any 2 adjacent cylinders is same, then we need to check the head gasket. Now when we have completed the dry test, it's time to perform the wet test. The difference between the dry test and wet test is that in dry test we did not add any fuel in the spark plug well. But in case of wet test, we will remove this ignition coil and we will remove this spark plug. We will remove the ignition coil and we will remove the spark plug, and we will add few drops of fuel in the spark plug well. What we will do is that the fuel will go to the clearances of the part that has occurred due to the failure of the component. For example, in this case, if the rings are bad and it is not able to compress the charge, the fuel will go and it will cover all those clearances. And when we again perform the compression test for a particular cylinder, the reading should be more if the rings are bad. So when we have removed the spark plug for this cylinder and added few drops of fuel in it, we will again put the compression test equipment in the cylinder number 1 and again crank the engine twice or thrice and note down the reading. Now we will do the same thing for all the 4 cylinders, that is for the cylinder number 1, 2, 3 and 4. We will add few drops of fuel in each cylinder and take the compression reading for each of the cylinders. After we have got the wet test reading for all the 4 cylinders, we will compare those readings with the reading of the dry test. For example, the reading for cylinder number 1 in dry test was 28 psi and the reading for cylinder number 1 for the wet test is 30 psi. That is, there is an increase of 2 psi of pressure. That shows that the rings of the cylinder number 1 are worn out and has to be replaced. The same goes for the corresponding cylinder as well. As I've already told, this change occurs because fuel goes to worn out places and cover those areas. But if dry test and wet test reading are same, but it is less than the manufacturer's specification, then there is valve leakage or warpage of the block. So this is how compression test is performed in car with petrol engine. So is it any different from a car with diesel engine? Yeah, there is somewhat difference. First of all, the reading for compression test of diesel engine will be higher as compared to petrol engine, because the compression of diesel engine is higher than the compression of petrol engine. Secondly, diesel engine does not have spark plug, and combustion in diesel engine takes place through compression. So, in case of diesel engine, we will either remove the injectors or we will remove the glow plugs. Now, how you want to perform this test depends on the equipment that you have. What I mean is that if you have the compression test gauge that will fit into the glow plug, you will have to remove the glow plug of the engine and you have to perform this test. But if you have a compression test gauge that will fit into the injectors, then you have to remove the injectors of your car, injector of your engine, and you have to put it there. And you can perform the same dry test and wet test as it was in a car with SI engine. So now when you know all about compression test, how it is done, how it is performed, why it is required, I'll show you a simulation of compression test. Remember, this is not an actual test, but you will at least get an idea of how this test is performed. So let me perform this test and show you how it is done. So what I will do is that I will open the hood, I will go near the engine, I will take my examining tools, I will take the compression tester. This is how gauge looks like. If the range is between the green part, then the compression of your engine is fine. As you can see, the result in percentage that shows the condition of various parts. But this is not what happens in actual condition. In actual world, we do not get the condition of parts in percentage, and we have to infer it by ourselves. So now when you know everything about compression test, why it is done, why it is required, and if you are getting low power from your car, and if you are not sure whether it's some internal mechanical parts of the engine, you will definitely get a compression test of your car to know the condition of the parts. Moreover, as I have told you in the earlier part of the video, the problem may also be due to some electrical fault, and if you get this compression test, you know what is the problem, and even you have some problem or not.
So thank you for watching.